You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
I'm Drew Leiter.
And I'm Cletus Jacobs.
And welcome to episode 15 of the Legends of the DCU podcast. Tonight we're talking Absolute Superman 15 through 17 and Wonder Woman's number 20 through 28. But before we get into that, let's talk some DC news. All right, Cletus, coming up for DC news. Absolute Batman number 20 has officially sold over 500,000 copies to comic book stores, according to Scott Snyder.
Awesome, Drew. That's awesome. And we've been talking about it. The Absolute books have just been crushing it on the sales charts. Really across the board, which is the most impressive thing, because like Batman inevitably will sell almost always, but it's all of the Absolute books. And I mean, I think a large part of that is due to the quality across the board so far of what we've gotten. But people also have really clearly responded well to this universe and the idea of what they're doing with this. People are into it. The execution has clearly mattered. They've been really, really good, which has only fueled people's interest even more, right? I mean, the other day, Drew, I know we're talking about the Batman sales, which again, phenomenal. When I was at a store, they had a limit on the number of Green Arrow number ones that you could buy. It's crazy. I'm aware that that's been the case in the past. I'm not saying that that's the first time that's ever happened or anything, but like, I think you and I both know comic book sales are not like single issues have not really been like that in a bit. And it's just, again, it shows just how hungry I think audiences are for these books right now. And again, I think it's a reflection on the execution of these books as well. Again, Batman is always going to do well as long as you're not doing something catastrophic with it, right? And it's really good. And that's the thing. So like, it's Batman and it's really good. It's incredible, Drew. I know that in the history of comic books, that's not the highest number or anything like that. But in recent comic book market sales, that's a huge number.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised when I saw that news. I was like, "Whoa, that's a lot of comics
For
that's a lot of
number one too, which is even more impressive."
yeah." So, man, it's exciting. I know we're having a blast talking about the Absolute Universe, which is since we've gone to our new format of releasing episodes every other week, we've decided to do something from the Absolute Universe and from the main universe. So. I know, it's just exciting right now. All right, well, that wraps up our DC news for this week. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll do our comics talk.
It's time to make a new promo for Enterprise Splaining.
Why?
So we can tell people about our podcast?
Can we just get the computer to do it?
Good idea. Computer, what is Enterprise Splaining?
Enterprise Splaining is a comedy podcast about Star Trek Enterprise, where each week only one person watches the episode and tells the others what happened. Hilarity ensues.
Does that work?
I guess. But maybe we should include our tagline.
Fine. Enterprise Splaining, the podcast where we explain Star Trek Enterprise to each other and to you.
And we're back. Let's talk Absolute Superman number 15, 16, and 17, which is The Never Ending Begins Part 1, 2, and 3. Following the siege of Smallville, Superman settles on the Kent farm and dedicates himself to helping people across the globe. But the endless suffering he hears leaves him exhausted, isolated, and increasingly burdened by grief, especially after discovering that Brainiac has destroyed the bottle cities he had hoped to save. As he struggles with his mission, Superman attempts to inspire change in figures like the imprisoned Ra's al Ghul while avoiding deeper relationships with Lois Lane and Lana Lang. His emotional breaking point brings him into conflict with Hawkman, a veteran hero whose origins trace back to a 1940 encounter with alien nth metal in Teth Adams' tomb. Hawkman challenges Superman's belief that he can save everyone and reveals a hidden history of superpowered individuals while secretly serving the interests of the Lazarus Corps. Their ideological clash is interrupted when Talia al Ghul unleashes Project Parasite on Metropolis, a monstrous living weapon that absorbs and fuses the city's population into a single horrifying organism. While Hawkman insists the creature and its victims must be destroyed, Superman refuses to abandon hope. After learning from Lois that Parasite released her because she trusted Superman completely, he allows himself to be absorbed and uses the creature's psychic network to reassure every captive mind that they are not alone. The resulting surge of hope causes Parasite to collapse and free the city, proving Superman's belief that compassion and inspiration are more powerful than fear. Humbled, Hawkman recognizes Superman's uniqueness, but Superman rejects any alliance with Lazarus and sends a warning that he cannot be controlled. Meanwhile, Ra's al Ghul abandons his prison and rejoins Talia. Brainiac refuses to help rebuild Lazarus Corps, and seeking to create the ruthless genius he believes history demands, Brainiac massacres Lex Luthor's family and friends, setting the stage for Lex's tragic transformation into Superman's future nemesis. Or so we're led to believe.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to have the desired effect that Brainiac wants. I'm not sure slaughtering everyone that he knows and loves in front of him is, for a guy that wasn't interested in making billions of dollars for being Lex Luthor, turns it down just to hang out with his family and friends and then slaughter them all in front of him. I don't know, Drew. That doesn't seem like the kind of guy that's going to suddenly snap and become a super genius, but I could be wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, my gut feeling was they just did this to Lex. I have a feeling he's going to be on Superman's side. That's what it felt like to me. So that's the thing with the Absolute Universe. You don't know what they're going to do because we've seen characters turned on their head here. So they could do the same thing with Lex, or they could make him a villain. It's up in the air.
I liked a lot of what we got in this little arc, Drew. I'm very curious to see what they do with Lex next. I mean, that was horrific, and just awful. And I'm very curious to see what the fallout, one way or the other, is. Like, what are they going to do with that? Very interesting. I'm really enjoying this take on Hawkman. We obviously got a taste of him when we read Absolute Evil, and he pops up at the end, revealed to be working with that cabal of villains and murdering Oliver Queen. But we can see that maybe he's not. He's certainly in league, right? At least at that point with them. But there might be more to him, and I'm very, very intrigued on where they're going to go with Hawkman. And we see Superman doing, his version of what we expect from Superman with Ra's al Ghul. Fascinating. I like that too. By the end, I mean, Ra's literally is shrinking. Like, when he first talks to Clark in the cell, he's still the huge hulking Ra's, right? And by the time Talia actually comes to pull him out of the cage, and part of this is because he's not being exposed to the Lazarus pits, right? And that he says that will eventually cost him his life. But it's an interesting metaphor for his shifting worldview. Now, it might be a temporary shift, right? But very interesting. And I also liked the take on Parasite. I thought that was a different, it still felt like Parasite, right? But it's not, they did it in a different way, or it's this more kind of like collective blob. Very interesting. We got a bunch of stuff that you would expect in a Superman book, Drew, but like they do consistently across these books, they're putting a different spin on it, doing something that you haven't seen before with characters, and it just makes you so eager and curious to read more and see what they're going to do next, because there are so many threads, Drew, that I can't wait to see what they do. Like, I am very excited to see more Hawkman, what happens with that. I'm excited to see what the fallout with Lex is going to be, what the next step with Ra's is now that he's been broken out. Just really great.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't mention Teth Adam. Because
that's a great point. I mean, that's a huge tease. We know that there's some version of Black Adam that we're probably going to see here in the Superman book. That's awesome, Drew. And it was a little tease because it was really mostly just a background for setting up Carter Hall's origin in this universe, which was so cool. You're right. It was so cool that I forgot that the whole reason they were even going down into this tomb was because it was where Teth Adam is buried. More is going to come out with that. That's just, man, Drew, just some really, really good stuff. My only quibble with these three books was I don't like the artist as much as I like the artist from the first whatever 15 issues that we read. Like he's not, it's not bad. It's just, it's not quite as to my taste.
That's understandable. At least it wasn't in the middle of a story arc, but some, change of
Exactly.
artists can
And
be.
that's the thing. Like they were at least consistent. This whole arc stayed with that artist, and I can't complain about that. And again, I didn't think it was bad. It just was, I was like, it's all right. Like, I just found myself wanting the initial art team on it. And that's such a minor quibble, Drew. It really barely even bothered me. It was one of those things where I was like, this isn't my favorite artwork, but the story was so good I didn't care. Yeah, I really enjoyed this 3 issue run that we just got through, man. I that might have been the most interested I've been so far, and I have, to be clear, really enjoyed this Absolute Superman run. So this is, I'm not saying this lightly. I think that this might have been the most intrigued and invested in what's going to happen next that I've been with the book so far.
Yeah, well, they're starting to dig into some other stuff, so it's really interesting. I'm into it too. All right, well, let's move on to our next titles for this week. Wonder Woman number 20 and 21. And this story arc is called Murder on Mount Olympus, part 1 and 2. When Ares is found murdered in Hippolyta's bed after a night of excess at a feast hosted by Dionysus, Wonder Woman recruits Batman to help solve the crime and prevent a war between Olympus and the Amazons. Granted only one day by Zeus, the pair investigate a maze of divine intrigue, questioning Hippolyta, Dionysus, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus, while uncovering secrets about Ares' recent transformation from a ruthless god of war into a compassionate figure haunted by the suffering he had caused. Along the way, Wonder Woman grows increasingly frustrated with the selfishness and cruelty of the Olympian gods, while Batman provides both detective insight and emotional support, helping Diana confront her lingering grief over Steve Trevor and sharing how meeting her restored his faith in something greater. After Batman is struck by a stolen lightning bolt and further clues point towards a larger conspiracy, Wonder Woman eventually deduces that Zeus himself murdered Ares with Hephaestus' dagger, believing his son's newfound empathy, born from repeated defeats at the Wonder Woman's hands, made him weak and unworthy. Zeus then framed Hippolyta and then attacked Batman out of spite toward Diana. Exposed before the gods, Zeus is forced to release Hippolyta when Batman threatens to reveal the truth to Hades and Ares' spirit, risking a divine civil war. Though Zeus escapes true punishment, Wonder Woman clears her mother's name, uncovers the truth behind Ares' death, and leaves Olympus alongside Batman, both heroes reflecting on loss, faith, and the importance of enduring life's tragedies together.
I enjoyed the murder mystery here, Drew. And again, King continues to do, in my opinion, a really great job of making sure that the spotlight is always on Wonder Woman. I think it would have been really easy once you pull Batman in to this mystery, to some degree, he becomes the main character of the story, especially when you have a lot of history of writing the character as King does. And unsurprisingly, he resists that urge, and it is very much still Wonder Woman's story. And honestly, Batman's mostly just kind of there. But this was a nice little sort of short arc, kind of coming off of the big arc with the Sovereign. And I know that we've had a few other things, right? But the big arc of that, and then we have this big arc with Mouse Man following this. It was a nice sort of little appetizer, so to speak, kind of giving you a break from a big one before they started another big one. And here's this smaller, more contained story. The only, again, I very much enjoyed this. The only kind of minor quibble that I had was that, in fairness, King was pretty open about it through the book, because they kept saying, like, I mean, the gods don't really die. Like, he's just down in Hades. So Ares was, like, murdered, but, like, not really murdered in a sense. It didn't feel like there was a whole lot of fallout to the story, which was, again, a point raised by King in the story. As they're leaving, Batman questions whether it was worth the trouble, essentially, because nothing really happens. But it did, I mean, acknowledging it doesn't still make it's still there, right? And so that was the only thing I was like, I don't know how consequential ultimately the story was, in terms of, like, is Ares off of the board, essentially? Is this a fancy way of saying, like, hey, Ares isn't going to pop up in a story for a bit because he's trapped down in Hades, I guess. And so that was the only, I kind of wish it would have felt like the story mattered a little more, but a very, again, Drew, that's a super minor quibble because I really enjoyed it. And the main thing is, as you're reading, are you enjoying what you're reading? And yeah, it was. Like I ended those 3 issues quite satisfied with the story that I got.
We've been getting a lot of team ups between Batman and Wonder Woman. I mean, not just in the main universe, but in the absolute universe too. We've had 2 of them there. So we've had quite a few team ups between Batman and Wonder Woman recently, and I've enjoyed them. The thing about this one, I think, was even though there wasn't that much consequences or fallout from the story, I think the biggest takeaway is Wonder Woman clearing her mother's name. I think that was the biggest thing she was trying to accomplish in this in the first place. And they got that accomplished. I do have to agree with you. It's easy for Batman to be in a story and to take it over. I agree with you. King did a good job of not having Batman do that here and was more there as Wonder Woman's helper than he was taking the lead. Of course, being on Mount Olympus, he's kind of out of his league.
Right.
So, though we know Batman can hold his own against more powerful people than he, but it did feel like he was out of his element here for sure, and felt like he wouldn't have survived if Wonder Woman wasn't with him.
That's okay. Like I'm okay with that because it's a Wonder Woman story, and I didn't really have a problem with it. Again, maybe you could be left wanting him being a little more involved in the investigation, but she goes to him she doesn't know he's going to get struck by lightning halfway through the investigation, right? And his peril kind of adds to the tension of the story because it's not like Zeus wasn't going to kill Hippolyta. He was going to make her mortal, which, I mean, in a sense, will kill her eventually. But I don't know. There's not that many stakes involved in bringing Batman in and having his sacrifice really, I thought, ramped up the tension of the story because, I mean, like you and I both know it's not going to happen, right? But it gives the characters more desperation to solve it, I felt, than if he wasn't involved.
Yeah, that's true. And he offered himself as a sacrifice if they failed. So that kind of put his life in danger too. But yeah, I enjoyed the story overall. All right, well, let's move on to our last story arc for this week. Wonder Woman's number 22 through 28. This story arc is called The Island of Mice and Men. After spending the night with Steve Trevor, Wonder Woman rushes away to stop a bizarre attack involving giant mice rampaging through Washington, D.C. Working together, Steve and Wonder Woman discover that the creatures are unwilling pawns controlled by the Mouse Man, whose assault on the Capitol is fueled by resentment toward political elites and anti-Amazon sentiment. Although Wonder Woman defeats him and saves the city, the attack was secretly engineered by the Sovereign to derail pro-Amazon legislation, revealing a larger conspiracy against the Amazons. Soon afterward, Diana faces another crisis when the Justice League refuses to authorize a mission to Moray Island to rescue Ida Candy and the rogue Amazon Emily. Because of international law, refusing to abandon those in danger, Wonder Woman defies the League and journeys to the isolated island where she encounters a society crushed under Mouse Man's authoritarian rule. There, she rescues a traumatized young girl who has been conditioned to speak only in propaganda slogans, offering her compassion, protection, and the freedom to express herself for the first time in her life. As Wonder Woman travels through Moray Island carrying baby Elizabeth, she witnesses the devastating consequences of Mouse Man's dictatorship. Citizens living under constant surveillance, dissent is brutally punished, and even giant mice have been weaponized to enforce obedience. The young girl slowly begins to recover her voice as Wonder Woman protects civilians, reunites families, and confronts the regime's violence, all while uncovering Moray Island's tragic history as a refuge that descended into tyranny under Mouse Man's increasingly ruthless leadership. Despite joining forces with members of the resistance, Diana becomes conflicted about the harm her intervention may be causing and focuses instead on finding Ida and Emily. Her search leads to the discovery of Emily and her daughter Lissa, two figures tied to terrifying visions of the future in which Emily becomes the matriarch, a conquering tyrant responsible for the deaths of Earth's heroes. Before Diana can process the implications of this revelation, Mouse Man captures Ida and Elizabeth, using them as leverage against her. When Emily is killed defending her daughter during a surprise attack, Wonder Woman's restraint finally breaks, and she launches a relentless assault on Mouse Man's fortress, refusing to submit even when Lizzie's life is threatened. Wonder Woman ultimately defeats Mouse Man after forcing him to confront the consequences of his choices, ending his reign and liberating Moray Island. In the aftermath, Wonder Woman offers Mouse Man a choice between facing justice from the islanders he oppressed or standing trial before the Amazons for his crimes, while also showing mercy to the giant mice that had been victimized by his rule. Although Superman and Batman criticized Diana for ignoring the Justice League's rules and acting unilaterally, she remains steadfast in her belief that protecting innocent people and her daughter justified her actions. The rescued girl, inspired by Wonder Woman's example, begins to embrace the uncertainty and possibility of a future beyond fear. The story closes with a chilling glimpse of what may still come in a possible future shaped by war. The matriarch systematically kills many of Wonder Woman's greatest enemies, including Angleman, Silver Swan, Psycho Man, Giganta, and Grail, not out of necessity, but to prove that she can succeed where Wonder Woman chose compassion and restraint. The contrast underscores the central theme of the saga. True strength lies not merely in victory, but in the difficult choice to preserve one's humanity, even in the face of grief, fear, and overwhelming power.
Houseman knows, Drew.
He does.
Mice have ears.
Mice have ears.
I really like this. It's one of the things you kind of come to expect it from Tom King with, obscure characters. He did the same thing with Kite Man, for example. But man, Drew, just what a great story from a character that hadn't appeared in a comic post-crisis. So it's been like 40, almost 50 years, at least at minimum, since we've seen this character pop up. It's great. He tells a very compelling story with it. To be clear, I am sure that this book, this arc in particular, for people who don't care for King's writing style, they're gonna hate this story because it's a lot of the repetitive dialogue that he kind of likes, that sort of chorus that runs through, right? The cat bat from his Batman stuff, the no thank you refrain that comes up frequently in this book. I think for people that don't like King's style, this arc had to just, if they even bother reading it, which is unlikely, hated this. I loved it. I thought it was so good. He manages to make Mouse Man a very compelling villain, giving you this secluded island country that's fallen under mouse dictatorship. And this was just really good storytelling, Drew. And then on top of that, as we're getting a very compelling story here in the present, it's also he's starting to slowly layer in stuff about this new villainess that I think we had gotten a taste of beforehand, if I remember correctly, Drew, right? I think the matriarch had popped up before. Am I misremembering that?
I don't remember.
I think she did. I think we had mention of her. I think there was teases that I think the arc before this episode, Drew, that we read, I think there was a tease right at the end that hinted that the baby that Diana has been trying to save will eventually become the matriarch. I don't think that was introduced in this run. I think we already knew that. But we get that layered in much more significantly where we're jumping into a version of the future where Wonder Woman appears to have at least temporarily lost somehow, right? And that this Amazonian matriarch has not just defeated her, but has essentially conquered the Earth. Very interesting. And again, obviously that's not going to be the canon future, so to speak, right? But it makes it really intriguing as to how do we almost get there? What's the path that potentially leads to this outcome? And we get our first taste of it. Her mom gets killed by Mouse Man's thugs when they go to kidnap all of the women. Right. And that, that's going to be part of it. And it was so sudden. It was one of those things, it wasn't shocking in that I couldn't believe that she died. It was shocking. And it's just I thought it was so well done by both him and the artist, Drew, in that it felt real. That sort of thing. It just, when it happens, it's instant, right? A gunfire goes off. She distracted, doesn't block it. And it takes her out and she's gone instantly. There's nothing, there's no fanfare. She's just gone. And again, I just thought really well done by both sides of the creative team there in capturing just the suddenness of that moment. Really good stuff, Drew. I really I have been a big fan of this Wonder Woman run the whole time. And I know it's not necessarily been the internet's cup of tea all the time, depending on your taste with Tom King. But for me, it's been really good. And I really enjoyed this story arc.
I really enjoyed this story arc too. But one of the questions I had, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of this run, where we have that scene in the bar in the pool room with the woman that kills all these men. Was that Emily? That was my big question.
It's the baby that she's trying to save. So her mom we see in the present, Drew. That's the mom and the baby that Wonder Woman is going to this island to save. The mom gets killed, right, by the mice men. But
Right.
the baby,
I knew that.
the baby is who we are being told will grow up to be the matriarch.
Right. But do you remember at the beginning of the run what started all the stuff with the Sovereign? Wasn't there an Amazon that killed a bunch of men in a bar? I was just wondering if that was
Oh yeah, I
Emily.
do think that's the yes, I think that is the mom.
Okay. I can't remember. Did she have a baby? Did they reveal that she had a baby at some point there?
Yeah, it's been, I will say that's been one thing, Drew, where I think King has had a very long-term plan of what the story that he wants to tell. And I think it's something that he's really good at. But he knows, I think he's had a very solid plan of where he wants the story to go over the like long term with these issues. But we don't know that. And I do feel like he has, that's one thing I don't know that he has done a great job stringing together is that opening sequence, like you said, of this Amazon kicks the whole thing off. It's not made super, like the connective tissue through that is very much sprinkled fairly far, like far enough away that obviously the way you and I are reading that is not necessarily how everybody's going to be reading the book, but like fundamentally, best case scenario, you're reading it once a month, right? So I don't know that our kind of vague recollection of what's going on and who was where is that different from anybody else's. And so I do think that is one thing that I feel like King could have been doing a little bit better is keeping that connective tissue a little more clear. And I don't necessarily need something every issue, Drew, but like you said, I'm not positive that it's the same woman. I'm pretty sure it is, but I kind of would need to go back and read it. And that's fine. Certainly you would find some of that in like Johns' Green Lantern run, right? By the time you get towards the end, it's been so long, you probably do need to go back and look at something. But that's sort of where I'm at with some of the early Wonder Woman plot points too, where it's been a bit, but also he kind of introduced that idea and then moved on. That was something you and I talked about for quite a bit during the Sovereign run, was that they introduced this woman and then did nothing with her. We thought it was going to be like the main crux of the story, and arguably, in a sense, she is, right? But we were thinking the Sovereign was the big picture story, and really it wasn't. That was just like the first leg of the bigger picture. And so it just didn't have we didn't understand the significance because we're not the writers. And I do feel like King could do a little bit better job cluing us in. I don't need to be handheld and spoon-fed the story, but can clue us in a little bit more, and I think occasionally on some of this stuff.
So that was one of the big questions I had in the story arc. Now, I got to tell you, I don't think there's any other woman besides Wonder Woman who would take her child into battle on her back. That's pretty bold and awesome.
It is. It's also reckless, and I do think I felt, Drew, I don't know about you, I felt like King, I think that was purposeful. I think he was trying to make you feel like she's being a little bit reckless by having the baby with her. That yes, yeah, it does show how awesome Wonder Woman is, and I don't disagree. But also, as he writes a couple times, she's unmoored by the death of Steve, right? She doesn't really know what to do with herself, and the only part of Steve that she has left essentially is her daughter. And so she can't even go on this, like, it is irresponsible to take Elizabeth on that mission with her. I don't think she can do it any other way, because without Elizabeth, she's in her mind, whether it's true or not, in her mind she is nothing. And so her only thing to like anchor her to the world is to have Elizabeth with her, even in a situation where she probably ought not to have her.
Agreed. But yeah, it was awesome to dive back into Wonder Woman. It had been a while since we'd visited, and to get so many issues, it's awesome reading these as story arcs. Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up the show.
Everyone these days could use a little support, and your friends at the ESO Network are no different. With the ESO Network Patreon, the cool thing is when you help support us, it's you who will benefit. With 4 tiers starting for as little as 25 cents a week, you can listen to some of your favorite network podcasts early, hear exclusive content, maybe get some ESO swag, or even possibly take a shot at the geek seat. All you need to do is sign up at patreon.com/ESO Network.
All right, well, that wraps up our episode for this week. Do you have a shout out, Cletus?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier, Mouseman his first post-crisis appearance was this story arc. So in terms of modern DC storytelling, this is it. He is, however, a former, an older character. Tom King did not create him. He first appears in Wonder Woman number 141 in 1963, and he's part of a villain team, the Academy of Archvillains, who take on Wonder Woman. And interestingly, Drew, and it kind of makes sense, in the story that we read, he has some sort of size-changing technology that he uses to greatly grow the size of mice so that they're these giant monsters, right? In the original version of this character, he certainly uses mice in a similar way, but he shrinks down to the size of a mouse, which I am a little bit, I get why he didn't do it, but I kind of wish we had gotten to see that too. But according to the DC fandom database, he had 5 total appearances. So not a long-standing character by any means, Drew. And again, that's a unbelievable deep cut. That I think shows that either King or someone on the editorial team is definitely doing some deep dive homework. And it's fascinating that they pulled this character out, Drew. Again, first appearance in 1963, and he only appeared 5 total times. So this is an obscure character that he turns around and turns into, 6-issue arc. Very interesting, intriguing villain. Just really great work.
7-issue arc.
7 issues, yeah, thank you. Great stuff. Again, that appearance, Wonder Woman 141, his first pre-crisis appearance.
All right, and for my shout out, I'm also jumping back to the 1960s because I'm going to shout out about my other podcast, Bat Chums. We are currently reviewing season 3 of Batman 66. We've recently returned from Londinium after watching Batman, Robin, and Batgirl take on Lord Fog and Lady Peasoup. Then we had another round with Egghead and Olga in Gotham City. And next, Batman, Robin, and Batgirl are going to be taking on the Eartha Kitt, Catwoman, and Joker in a team-up. So I'm excited to be talking about that soon. So just a little bit of what's going on over in my other podcast, The Bat Chums, as we keep on rolling through season 3, the final season of Batman 66, before we start jumping into stuff afterwards and into the Batman animated series. So just to give you a little taste of where we're heading. All right. If you'd like to comment on anything we've talked about tonight, you can reach us at our feedback line, 317-455-8411. You can text us, you can leave us a message, or you can email us at legendsofthedcu@gmail.com. All right, Cletus, coming up, we've got Absolute Flash number 11 and 12, War of the Flashes. We've got Batman number 158 through 163, Hush 2. And finally, we're going to be wrapping up the run of Birds of Prey, issues number 25 through 28, The Unreality. All right, well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.